think we're about to go live. All right, let's do a sound check. Sound check.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, we are good. Everything off. All right. So nobody's logged on yet, so we don't have to start right away. But do you guys have the Twitch up?
Yeah.
I turned mine off because I think it was affecting my network connection. I think I've got just enough high-speed internet to just Skype. So
no problem. All right. Well, we might as well get started. So, welcome everybody to CanHammer TV. It is December 12th, and today's episode features two guests. I have with me today Colin Sherman and Mitch Pelham, both from the Best in Faction podcast. So, welcome, guys.
Hey there.
hey, how's it going?
And thank you for joining me. I talk to these two guys fairly regularly because I'm a supporter of their podcast and everything that they do with Best in Faction. So it's really cool to have them on our channel here.
Hello.
And so we'll just get started. We'll just dive right in. We'll get maybe start with you, Mitch, there on the left. How you kind of a quick resume of your 40K experience. And
Sure. I started playing when I was a kid at the end of second, beginning of third. I couldn't afford models, so I played with Legos. Me and my friends, when we had the books, stopped that when got bored with Legos, and then started working at a board game shop during seventh, and ended up being the only person who knew anything about Warhammer 40K. So I started running some stuff for that. Got back into it with Grey Knights, and haven't looked back since. Just been playing competitively pretty much non-stop. Done well at a fair number of tournaments. Won a couple.
Yeah, I first heard of you from Hellhound fame. I guess it was last year. Was it the year before? LVO, when you
Last year. Yeah.
Large number of Hellhounds to LVO, and
It was 14 Hellhounds, I think. Yeah, 14 Hellhounds and
You were going
Slam Captains.
You were going to run 17.
Yes, yeah.
Originally,
but
we talked you down to 14.
yeah, yeah. That way I could fit in. I had a Blood Angels librarian or two, and then some Blood Angels scouts, which all did work and gave me more command points and let me kind of buy more area for the Hellhounds to come in, which all worked very well at the time because we didn't have all the limitations, so I could outflank. All I needed was the right number of drops, and I could outflank all the Hellhounds, so your anti-tank could never do what it wanted.
Right.
yeah, and you got foiled by empty buildings.
And here
Something
we are,
like
almost,
that, yeah.
Here we are, almost a year later, and they finally got nerfed.
They did. They finally got nerfed. I sold mine in spring, really, because I just was bored with them. And something we talked about on our podcast last episode, that the player mindset changed so that list was no longer viable, which I think is a really interesting thing. No rules really changed that made that list not viable. It was just play style and how it was disseminated in the player base.
Hugging became a lot bigger thing. Like, LVO last year, hugging wasn't a big thing in combat. And as soon as people realized the power of hugging, the Hellhounds suddenly spent a lot of time being hugged instead of flaming people.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Snyder, I'll give him credit, was ahead of the curve on that. He beat me at the Mama Boys Brawl, and it's the single most flattering thing anyone's ever said to me about Warhammer 40K is, I planned for a month and a half how to beat your army. And I'm like, That's about as flattering as it gets. That's a big compliment.
There you go. And Colin, how'd you get in?
My dog's making a huge amount of noise behind me. So I originally started in... Yeah, I originally started in second and third. Played a bunch in second and third with some people, and then kind of lost track of them, lost track of the game. And in right before 8th edition came out, my kids were interested, so I bought Age of Sigmar, and I played a bunch of Age of Sigmar, knowing in my heart of hearts that laser beams and robots and tanks are cooler than dudes on horses. So I kind of figured, and I still owned all of the Metal Valhalla stuff I had, and I still owned all the Dark Angel stuff. So when 8th edition came out, I was there the day it came out and bought the box set, and was hooked quickly, loved it. And then my friends, I actually found the people that I had played with 20 years ago. One of which had started a 40k team called the Mughal Legion, and he told me, you should go to tournaments. And I went to an RTT and did okay, and then the very next tournament I went to was a major tournament, and I got first overall. No, I'm sorry, I got best general, I didn't get first overall. And that was a year and a couple months ago now, and like Mitch, I've won some tournaments, I've done some things, been to some places, and it's having a great time.
Yeah, like you seem like you've come from literally nowhere, Colin, to like high end in a very short space of time.
Oh, thanks. It's been really interesting. It was a struggle busting my way through the early season with Tyranids, not realizing how hard they really were to play, and winning stuff, but also not. And then I switched to Ynnari and was like, oh, well, this is just easy in comparison. Which is a problem with Ynnari, but whatever.
Yeah. So cool, guys. We've got some people. If you got questions on the chat, guys, do feel free to ask, and I'll sort of interject the questions. And we are just taking questions on Twitch. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, then pop over to Twitch. So you guys started a podcast called Best in Faction, and now you've got some streaming and stuff going on. So how did you guys decide to start that?
Well, it was Mitch. It was Mitch who pushed us to start it, so he should tell the story. Maybe.
He's still with us.
Okay, I'll tell the story.
Yeah, go on.
So, Mitch and I met after I won that tournament in October of last year, and he was very soon after that, I believe. I don't remember the exact, or right before it, he got second at BAO, and so I knew him from that, and he's part of the team, and we had met, and we started hanging out, and got along really great. And as we started going to tournaments, we discovered we were at the same tournaments all the time. And Mitch kind of had this idea that no one who really is going to lots of tournaments and doing okay is really doing a podcast that's specifically about that. And I apologize if someone is doing that and we just haven't heard it, but we hadn't been exposed to that. There are some very competitive podcasts, competitive focus podcasts that do talk about it, like Chapter Tactics does a good job and things like that. But nobody that actually is going to the number of tournaments that Mitch and I are going to. And then there's kind of a different balance of skill sets between Mitch and I that really made the podcast work as well. I'm a pretty heavily organized person. I like to organize things and build structures, and Mitch is a really good free thinker who comes with tons of content and topics for us to talk about, so that matched up well. He actually had to nag me for a few months to get me to want to do the podcast. But for those that are wondering, Mitch's internet went out, so he'll be back in a minute. Mitch had to actually nag me to do it. I wasn't actually confident that anyone wanted to hear what I had to say. That's what I told him. It seemed like a weird thing. I've done a lot of public speaking in my life, like a ton, so I know how to do that. But at the time that Mitch wanted us to do this, I had won one major. I went 5-1 at SoCal, and then I'd been 3-2 in like everything else.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, what? I'm just going 3-2 a lot. Is that really that interesting? Mitch felt it was, and so we just started the podcast up with talking about our journey, what we're trying to accomplish. We do very thorough reviews of our games, and we try to focus specifically on what strategically happened, not just, oh, I rolled bad, which is nobody really wants to hear that. But what could we have done differently? What did my opponent do? How could they have countered me? What did we think was interesting about it? We tried to talk about sportsmanship. We originally tried to talk a lot about real life balance and how that works, but nobody seemed super interested in that. So we've not been talking about that as much.
Yeah,
I guess that was basically the idea.
You're spending hours playing this game. You're probably not too bothered about work-life balance, but and then more hours listening to podcasts.
Well, I mean, Mitch has just bought a house with his girlfriend, and they are remodeling it to make it livable. And I live with my girlfriend and her 3 kids and our 3 dogs. So there is a lot of real life that has to be balanced, but that's just the way we have to handle it. Part of my handling of that balance is that I got my girlfriend ridiculously addicted to painting. So she literally sits at home all day doing commission painting for other people.
Nice.
And so that gives us the ability to... She's not at all interested in playing the game. I played 1 game with her, and she's like, this takes way too long. I can't pay attention this long.
It's like the dream.
But I don't really like painting. I like modeling. I like building the stuff and doing kit bashes and stuff, but I don't really like the painting. I can do it, but it's not my favorite. And she's 10 times faster and 100 times better than me. So it's neat that we can talk about it still. We can go to the tournaments together, and she can see what people are doing, and she can be excited about the hobby part of it, and I can be excited about the game part of it. That's been really special. So.
Yeah. Are you going up to Adepticon?
I'm not.
Okay.
Adepticon has Adepticon's major tournament has a 4 rounds in 1 day thing that I'm just not game for. So that tournament's not going to be for me. I want to go for the spectacle of Adepticon, but next year I'm doing so many trips that it just didn't fit in.
Yeah. I'm just thinking because like Duncan and those guys all hold painting seminars and stuff. It's a pretty big.
She thinks Nova's the coolest thing ever. We did Nova last year, and she went to 9 classes in 3 days, or 10 classes in 3 days, while I was playing. And that was really fun, because at the end of the day, we both had been super intellectually taxed and had been interested, and there was lots to talk about, rather than when we went to like SoCal, not SoCal, but BAO, she's just bored all day. She couldn't find anything interesting to do. So Nova's great. We're going to do that again. She did classes at LVO as well. She'll do that. And then at some point we'll do Adepticon. I'll probably do the team tournament at Adepticon when I go, I think is what we'll do.
Big. Watch out for Team CanHammer.
Right.
It's hardcore. So what's you guys... So, you started off as a podcast, and you still do that. And you're right. There's a slightly different slant from your podcast in that it's talking about tournaments, but it's tournaments that you guys were at and often did well at. And so that is a slightly rarer thing to hear amongst all the many, many podcasts that are out there. And so that's interesting in of its own, and that makes it different. And then you started doing some stream games and things like that, and then maybe organizing some tournaments now with the sort of Best in Faction banner. What's the sort of, let's say, 5-year plan for Best in Faction? What do you guys envision?
I am back, guys.
Welcome back, Rich.
Thank you.
He's asked us about the 5-year plan for the podcast, which I don't think we've spent literally any time talking about.
We have a 5-week plan, which involves getting us to the charity event.
Yeah, that's right. We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, so the podcast, we've not even been doing it a year yet, and we're getting... we're recognized everywhere at all the tournaments we go to, and the Patreon group is amazing, and we get tons of positive feedback and some really helpful, constructive feedback, too. I think it's blown up much faster than either of us expected it to, so kind of keeping up with that is the current thing. I started streaming games because I play a lot of practice games, and I wanted to provide more value to the community than just the podcast. The streaming I actually find more fun than just playing the game normally. I enjoy the interacting with people and hearing what people have to say. That's going to be a little bit trickier heading into LVO because I've got these friends who want to come play me but don't want people to know what their list is. So I think that there might be some secret practice games that are going to be happening. But we're going to be streaming more. Once Mitch's house is done, he's going to build a studio too, and he'll be streaming as well, so we'll be able to trade off the streaming duties.
Yeah.
And that'll be really neat. Nice. Yeah, and then the one thing we're going to do, I think for sure, we've talked about a bunch, is this sort of format for actually recording the podcast with video and people and audience able to ask us questions and then putting it up on YouTube for people that actually want to see our faces while we're talking. Technologically speaking, as I'm sure you saw, Darren, it's not much more complicated than just recording a podcast. So that'll probably be a thing that we'll do as well. Mitch, what do you got? This was all your brainchild. What do you have in the 5-year plan that I don't know about?
More charity events for sure. I really like seeing the community do positive stuff. So, that would definitely be something I have. Also, I'd like to possibly start fielding or start having events that are experimental to try different ways to improve the tournament scene. So I'm going to talk about my favorite, the one that Colin hates, which is sideboards.
Yep.
And that's the thing is we disagree on that, but I think it's really great for the mid and lower tier players, to feel like they can compensate for a wide variety of lists. And I think that's sort of the thing that is interesting. Part of the reason that I think there wasn't a premier competitive podcast where where the top players or higher end players, whatever, we're talking about their strategies is because a lot of those players want to keep them secret. They want to keep that advantage, which is cool. Like, I get it. I'm not going to be talking about the list I'm taking to LVO until afterwards because I want to have that competitive edge. But at the same time, tournaments are built out of more than just that top 10% of players, and figuring out how the other 90% can have more fun and feel like they're getting more out of that event only means bigger tournaments and more challenging events for everyone. So that's kind of how I look at it. Is I'm really interested in what makes the game better for people who go 3-2 or 2-3. That to me makes a lot more sense.
And also helping those people is more fun than winning tournaments.
Exactly, that too.
It just is.
Well, and they come up to you and they're like, hey, I was able to do this, this, and this because you recommended something. It's so rewarding and it's so much fun. Like, who cares? Like, if you get first or fourth, in my case, fourth. But, it's more about that. If that community grows, everyone wins and we all have more fun.
Right.
I'm going to try turning on my camera again. We'll see if it...
We referenced the charity event a few times, Darren. Should we talk about what that is?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be a cool thing to mention. A beautiful segue, in fact, into the charity event that you guys are running.
So, one of the weird things that happened is right before Nick Nanavati launched his Knights Pro thing, I had reached out to him and asked him if he would coach me. I actually sent him an email asking for him to coach me before he started a coaching business. Weirdly. I had never met him, but I knew of him, and I had heard him interviewed, and I liked the way that he thought of the game. And so I reached out to him, and through Nick's coaching, he and I have actually become good friends. And he's been out here, and I've been to visit him a few times. And we talked about the fact that between Nick and all the tournaments we're going to, we're meeting a lot of I hate the term top tier, but we're meeting a lot of like the really good ITC ranked people. The known names. Yeah, the names is really what we've been calling them. And we wanted to do something with that that was meaningful. So for years and years, I've every year given money to Child's Play, which is a charity run by the guys who made the Penny Arcade comic strip. The guys behind PAX is probably how they're better known now. But they're local to me. They're in Linwood, and I'm in Edmonds. It's like literally the city next to me. And Child's Play is a charity that makes sure that there's toys and games and things at children's hospitals all around the world. I have kids. One of those kids spent a huge amount of time in a children's hospital, and I know from talking to him that was a huge thing. And that charity means the world to me. So we had the idea that what do people actually want that they don't get? And what a lot of people said was they want to see top-level players play games with narration. They want to understand what these top-level players are thinking and what these games are like. So the stream is fun. We had the idea, why don't we see how many of these people we know we can get to come out here, and we'll spend 48 hours straight. Some of us will sleep, but some aren't going to. We'll do 48 hours straight, and we'll do 2 streams, and we'll literally just play Warhammer. And it will be as many of the kind of top 100 ITC people that we know that were kind of the criteria was, are they in the top 100? Are they someone who's good for the community? Are they going to be positive and a good person to have on the stream? And then do we know them well enough to invite them to our home?
Well, so and people like Bob, you know, his ITC ranking doesn't matter. What he does for the community speaks for itself.
Yeah, and then I was going to say, and then we added other people that are really just community fixtures. Like in Washington State, the most important person here for our community is Bob, who runs the Gamers Haven, who runs 2 major tournaments every year, and goes to every other tournament he can, and is super supportive. So naturally we invite Bob. And then we took the people from the Mughal Legion that maybe aren't ranked as high, however, go to tournaments constantly, and we filled them into the roster as well, kind of the people, the traveling crew from the Mughal Legion rather than our whole team, which is actually quite big. So the idea is we'll literally just do 3-hour games. In every game, there will be 2 people playing and 1 person watching the stream, answering questions, making sure that everybody knows if there's a mistake made. We are going to do a top 8 ranked player single elimination RTT as part of that. So Nick is obviously in that. He'll bring a list, and then the next 7 people, which I think right now includes me. If we get a few more people, it won't include me. But we'll grab a couple different... We'll have a list. We'll do single elimination. We'll play that through. We've added a few fun things, like Nick and I are going to host a fireside chat telling it. I want to kind of encourage Nick to tell some of the ridiculous stories of all the tournaments he's been to. You know, he's been winning GT since he was 15. So he's got some really weird experiences to talk about that I think will be fun. And then we've got some silly things, like we're going to open up bidding towards the charity to require Nick to play a certain army. So we're going to say, you know, go ahead and bid some money, and if you win this, you get to pick for this highly competitive game against whoever, Jeff Robinson or Mitch or, you know, whoever's coming that we want to see Nick play, and Nick has to make an army out of Necrons or Sisters of Battle, or people wanted to know how specific they could be. And I think it's fine to say things like non-horde chaos, you know, like things that really aren't necessarily something that you see be super competitive, but Nick's going to try his best to win that game. And we're going to do 2 of those, so that should be super neat. And then the other thing that will be neat is we're also going to do a couple games where Nick doesn't get to know what army he's playing until he gets to the table. So we're going to grab a bunch of tournament results, and I might participate in this too, because I think that would be really fun. But the idea is there's a random generator that tells you what list you're playing, and it's a list that's done top 3 in a GT in the past few months.
I'm down for that.
We're going to remove the ones from the list that I know Nick knows how to play. Like, we're not going to have doubles for Yunari on the list. And then we'll grab whoever from the party, from the group here, that knows the most about that list, and he's going to spend on stream 15 minutes interviewing that person about that list. So you're going to get to hear, what does Nick need to know before playing a competitive game of 40K with an army he doesn't know? Where's his brain going? What does he want to understand? Because when I talk to him about that, it's not about numbers. It's not about what does this thing do. It's very much about how do I deploy, and what is this army going to do, and what am I going to approach, and what do I need to be careful about, and what's the biggest mistakes? Those are the questions that he asks, and I think people will want to hear that. So there's a bunch of stuff like that. And it's going to be free. Whole thing is free. We're going to ask, and we're going to ask you a lot, because it's a charity marathon. It'll be like, what was the thing that Jerry Lewis did all those years? The telethon. We'll constantly ask you to donate money. That's just part of the gig. And we're going to ask that you do. We're going to come up with a nominal amount of money to ask for. You know, it's 48 hours of entertainment. So we'll probably say, like, hey, can you give $30? Right? It's a nominal fee for how much entertainment. And then we'll take all 96 hours of content, and I'm going to host it. And we'll then have a subscription or a fee or something to get at that for those people that want to watch everything. For the first stream, 100% goes to charity. I'm flying a few people out. I'm housing everybody. Mitch and everybody's going to feed everybody. We're doing all of that out of our own pocket.
And eat Costco pizzas.
Yes, yeah. Super cheap to feed gamers. So all the charity funding is all from us. All the money that comes in is going to go to Child's Play. The hosting thing, I am going to have to pay for the hosting fees out of the charity money, because that's just, I don't know what that's going to be. But the rest will go to charity as well. So we're hoping this will be an annual thing, and that we'll be able to get more and more people each year. This year we have, I think the number is, I think we've got 10 of the top 60 in the ITC. It's something like that. I don't have it in front of me.
It's pretty.
So that's pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask people to pay, something even up to what they would pay to attend a tournament if they're going to watch 48 hours of coverage.
And if they can't, oh well.
Yeah. No, it's a great idea.
And I think that's the thing is that it in one way it's something that we're giving to the community. So anyone who can't, to donate or anything, totally cool. It's our gift to you guys.
Right.
If you can donate, then you get to pay it forward, and I think that's kind of just like the ideal way to do something like that, where everyone wins, everyone's getting something out of it. We're gonna have a ton of fun. It's going to be a great time for everyone, and it's hard. Life is in general isn't a very fair place, and so when you can create something where everyone wins, that's the best.
Right.
So why don't you? I don't think you mentioned it. When is this amazing event?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's January 4th through 6th. Friday the 4th through Sunday the 6th. 6 o'clock Pacific p.m. to 6 p.m. on the Sunday. Okay. Excuse me. You can find it on our Facebook page, and tomorrow charityhammer.com goes live. So that'll be really easy to send people to.
Okay, so that is the website for the event, charityhammer.com.
Yeah.
Okay, and
right now it's just there's just a Facebook event, but the website was done as of a little while ago. I just got to proofread it all, and then it'll be up.
Cool, and it'll be on your Twitch stream, I guess, Biff Pod.
Yeah, and another Twitch one that we don't know yet.
Yeah, we're working with Twitch on that. They were kind enough to reach out. So.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that was wild. Director of business development or some title from Twitch. I don't remember exactly what title. I don't want to call him out in case he gets in trouble. But this guy reached out and said, "Oh, I love 40K and I do this thing for Twitch and can I help you?" And he's been massively helpful. So that was really neat.
Sweet. Well, our channel auto hosts you guys whenever you guys stream, and we're not streaming, so it'll go out on our channel as well. So.
Fantastic.
So Great. That's cool. That's cool. All right, that sounds exciting. We're actually hosting a charity event on the 19th. Just like a little kind of local 16-man to support Brothers and Sisters charity. And it's really cool, actually, the amount of support that comes out of the community for events like this. So that'll hopefully be the first annual. We're CanHammer, and we're doing it with a group called Anvil of Wargaming, so it's called the Hammer and Anvil Charity Open.
There you go.
Boom. God, that didn't take too long to come up with that name, but
I hope not.
No. Yeah, so we're hoping to turn that into an annual thing as well. And there seems to be a lot of charity events popping up all around, which is great, which is super good.
Yeah.
Yeah, use all our genius for good,
Well, one of the funny things is it's such an expensive hobby, right? One of the things we talk about is even if you win the big prize at a big tournament, it probably still costs you more to get there and stay in the hotel. So, it's a hobby that the travel costs a lot, the game costs a lot. I think it makes sense for us to try to give some of that back, right? We're all putting a lot of resources into this game.
Yep. No, it's a great idea. I think anybody with resources, it's always great when they can give back to people without resources. So,
for sure,
in all areas of life.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to discussion of. We're technically not post-chapter approved yet, but for all intents and purposes, the book is basically
spoiled.
Released.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of information out there, and we're not going to talk about all the different points, changes, and all that. There's plenty of places you can get that information. What I wanted to ask you two guys is what you think is going to happen over the next 6 to 7 weeks before LVO, because I think we may not see a lot of what the meta is going to be like before LVO, because there's Christmas, nothing's happening over Christmas, and then I don't think there's any huge events before LVO. So the LVO might be a big meta unveiling, which is interesting. The timing of that, it was probably intentional. So what do you guys going to think is going to happen? Sort of broad strokes and maybe more specific lists that you think we might see.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say if you wanted to go first. Go ahead.
So for what I think we'll see more of, I think that Chaos is kind of in a weird place right now. We're going to see people try a lot of different demons and different things to try and make up the difference of what happened with Cultists. I still think Cultists are very good. I would also say that Hellforged Leviathan's got a big points drop. For if you take the double Reaper or not Reaper, but whatever their version is, the Butcher Cannons. Yeah, I think they drop 20 points each, so that's a 40 points drop. So all of a sudden, if you're looking at taking those, that can compensate for the difference in cost and cultists. So I don't know that necessarily changes too much there. Smite Spam's still going to be great.
And those were already good, by the way. Those weapons.
Yeah, they were already. I saw them at top tables all the time, so it's not like they weren't good. But them dropping 40 points is huge. So that's for Chaos. For Imperium, Guard definitely got a boost. I would expect to see a lot more Horde and Artillery. So very traditional Guard-looking list. They definitely push that with the formations. I think the hidden gem right now is it's the Ministorum formation for Guard that makes you can make all of your conscripts basically. You can take a blob of conscripts and make them like Wolfen, so when they die, they pile in and swing. And for Catachans against orcs with Yark nearby, in Overwatch. In Overwatch, and then swinging back, you take out 30 boys every time.
We're seeing
it's not even mathematical.
The return of conscript spam, you think?
Probably, definitely for conscripts. Infantry squads just don't have a lot to offer right now because hordes need to be big blobs that are hard to shift. For Eldar, I would defer to Colin. But the only thing I'll say is that finally Wave Serpent spam is going to start rising up more. I think more and more, but they got nerfed, so. They're going to be one Wave Serpent short of being like truly unstoppable. So that's nice.
Yeah, I spent a bunch of time looking at the Eldar changes, and they did get nerfed. The stuff that people were using went up in points. Shining Spheres and Wave Serpents for sure. I don't think they got nerfed enough. For those that are wondering, the thing is though, they got nerfed and everybody else got buffed pretty much. So it's hard to know exactly what's happened. I'm pretty sure that most of the Ynnari lists that were good are still top tier. Double Spear being still a top tier army that will win tournaments. It is harder to make now. That's a tight list. Trying to do a lot of things. I had to lose a Psyker, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but in Eldar it's a big deal. Like basically, I lost Jinx Protect. I can only do one, not both, in a turn. Doesn't maybe sound like a big deal to people. It is a bigger deal than you think. The Wave Serpent change is big because I was excited to play Wave Serpent spam, and the way I was going to do spam is very similar to Trent Northington's Renegade Open list, which is Guardians inside of Wave Serpents with Ynnari, one Spear unit, and Dark Reapers. That army is just too expensive now. You just can't. It doesn't work. And I was talking to Nick and a few other older players, and they all agree that the 13-point increase to Wave Serpents is actually enough to make Wave Serpent spam a lot less appealing. The one less Wave Serpent that you get is actually a big deal. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that we're going to see Wave Serpent spam. I do think Ynnari is still here. I think Double Spear Ynnari is still great. And then I think Orcs are top tier all day long. I've seen a lot of people online are talking about how people are reacting to Orcs. Now, I've played Nick Nadavati playing them and Steve Pembring playing them. So I've seen top-level Orc, and it's terrifying. I've been rebuilding all of my lists to deal with just the ridiculous shenanigans that Orc armies can do. I think that the Ludabomb, which is what everyone's talking about, is as bad for the meta as the Castellan was before anything changed on it. Where it's just like, well, there's a bunch of armies that just can't do anything about this.
Well, it's actually it's worse because the thing about the Ludabomb is it has volume of fire, which the Castellan does not.
Right, it can kill anything.
Yeah, it is. So it is, and I'm happy for work players that have something great. I'm working on different ways to handle it.
Yeah, me too.
But so I don't want people to. This is not sky is falling, but it is better than the Castellan was, and it's backed by an army that doesn't need smash captains because everything smashes.
Right. Yeah. It's people are focused on the Ludabomb, and the reality is that the 90 to 120 boys are just as scary.
Yep.
Oh, for sure.
So it's having to deal with both that's the problem, and it's not going to be a super easy army to play. And that's something that people aren't getting. It's not going to be a no offense to Mitch, but a lot of people performed really well with Knights. Mitch's list was harder than just the 3 big Knight lists to play, but Knights has a certain low skill level cap where you can beat a bunch of people without really mastering the game. I don't think that's the Orc list. I think the Orc list is harder to play.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely harder to play, and the Orc list suffers a lot just from Dark Eldar. Vect is so powerful against them.
Yep.
And what I'm seeing at least, with the army construction, I'm trying to get away from stratagems where I only need 1 or 2 or 3 key ones, and that's it. That is Vec's impact on the game. Is if you want to win a tournament, you need to be able to go against Eldar and Dark Eldar, and so you need to have an army that functions well enough if you get Vected.
So
yeah, you can't have the combo that requires it.
So I've got secret tech against orcs. Shield drones, apparently.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch your game from last night because you were talking about that in the chat, and I don't follow how it went so well for you.
2 broadsides.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely. So, do you guys think orcs will win LVO? Just put it on the line right here.
I mean, they're one of 3 armies I would say that will.
Okay.
I would go. It's going to be Imperium, Ynnari, or Orcs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I am seeing some secret sauce from my Tyranid friends. I do think that Tyranids. When the Orc Codex came out and I read through it, my initial read was the current way I was playing Tyranids. The Tyranid list I was playing for all those tournaments is absolutely top tier. It beats Double Spear Ynnari if you play it right. It is ridiculously powerful, and if you make one mistake, you lose the game. So that list is an Orc list, but only bad. No, it is trying to be the Orc list, only it's worse. And I wrote Tyranids off because of that. Some Tyranid players have come to me and been talking to me about it, and they have ideas that are real good. And you have to remember that I believe we're going to get a GSC Codex before LVO. Yeah. I think we're going to have a Gene Stealer Cult Codex for LVO. So there could be absolutely be Gene Stealer Cult Tyranid combo that is also hyper competitive.
If Gene Stealers get a Codex before LVO, I would revise it to include Gene Stealers and Tyranids.
Like, you got to imagine that, Reese and those guys have been talking to GW, and they're like, you got to make this happen before LVO.
I don't think that they hold that much sway.
No, I don't either. But I think that because we got Orcs a while ago, and it's like the next Codex, and it's depending on what you think about Ynnari, and I'll talk about this on my Christmas wish list later. So we'll talk about this, but I think Ynnari's going to get a book. So I think there's actually 2 books left. No, I think you want them to have one. We can talk about that. The other thing I was going to say about where the meta's going is I've read through these specialty detachments and Vigilists, and some of the Marine ones are really powerful. And you take that and you combine the fact that most Marine armies had the Grey Knights, which I know people are not happy with the Grey Knight changes, are not enough, they're saying. But if you literally look at the price page for Grey Knights, 80% of their units went down in cost. 80%, everything went down in cost.
Well, hold on. They didn't adjust any of their. They only adjusted characters and a couple of their units. They didn't adjust any of the strike squads or any of that stuff.
I don't know. I watched a video. The winter SEO video had the points page open and had Sharpie and had gone through every line and changed it, and it was like 3/4 of them easy. So I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but my point is that Marines in general got point reductions across everywhere. I know Space Wolves didn't get a lot of love, so sorry, Mitch, but everybody else got a bunch of love.
We're too new, apparently.
It's hard for me to... Well, Dark Eldar didn't get changed either. It's hard for me to imagine that there isn't something super competitive with those formations, those specialty detachments, and all those point reductions. I think there's got to be something in there, and Marines are actually really good against Orcs.
That is true.
Something we're seeing in our testing is that power armor in cover is actually a problem for Orcs. So, there might be a Marine-heavy Imperium list that will really be a thing. I agree with Mitch, though, that it's Imperium, Orcs, and Ynnari. And Craft World Eldar getting a points hit to Wave Serpents does not help them at all. The only Craft World Eldar army I would have played is 8 Wave Serpents. and you can't. Now it's 7. It's just not. It's not as good. So
yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
The Marines are interesting. I mean, they got a lot of point reductions. I think just in and of themselves, the point reductions doesn't make too much difference. You just have more Marines available to be killed.
I mean, it's making me re-examine Death Watch is the main thing.
Death Watch it seems like where there's going to be some bang for buck. It may. I'm a Raven Wing fanboy, so I'm trying that formation, which seems pretty nifty. But I just still don't think you have enough models.
It didn't.
With the points reductions.
I did try it, and basically what I find is just the problem is Talon Masters need invos, and they don't have them.
They don't have them yet. Yeah. So I think it's up to Death Watch to pull the weight for Marines. You know, drop pods went down. The predicted 20 points still makes them not good, and so who knows what's going to happen with Marines? All sorts of rumors about a new codex or more formations, or who knows what will happen with Marines. But
here's where I'm at on all of this. I think people react really quickly to the points reductions and say it's not enough. And I think about, Nick Nanavati taking Ultra Shame to those tournaments, where he's literally playing almost entirely Ultramarines with some Assassins and doing really, really well. I think that people are not thinking of the box enough on these Marine armies. I think the fact that, and admittedly, he's better than everybody else. And so many points reductions, it's silly to think that there's nothing there. And I think there's something there. I don't think I'm the one to find it. I'm not the list builder that Mitch is or that Nick is, but I think it's got to be there. There's got to be something for Marines.
Yeah. I mean, there's some stuff there. The problem is that what got buffed was Terminators and Primaris, and these are all 2-wound models, and Ludas are a thing. That's really that's the problem. Like I look at the formations and stuff. I get excited about them, and I remember, oh right, half of a squad of Ludas shoots at that squad and they disappear, and then the other half of Ludas shoots at that other squad that has that really cool strategy and they disappear, and that's where I think that Marines are struggling right now. Is that they everything that got buffed made them a really cool 2-wound per model army, and the best shooting unit in the game at this moment does 2 wounds a shot.
That's fair. Yeah. I know that company veterans got. Oh yeah, someone just said it in the chat. Company veterans are cheaper too now.
Yeah. Let me put a dark horse out there. Maybe not so dark, but after last night's experience, how about Tau?
I think Tau have always been better than people think they are.
Oh,
I'm a Tau fanboy. I've been playing test games with them to learn them. I think they're great. I think Tau have to go through a route at a tournament that doesn't go through Unari. Mm-hmm. I think that we had Sean Morgan on our podcast after he got best general at Harvester of Souls, which is like a 70-person, 65-person, I think, something like that, tournament in Spokane, and he won. I got second, and then I got best overall for my paint score. He said on the podcast, and he plays Eldar and Tau. That's what he plays. He said, "I won that tournament because I didn't have to play a good Eldar player." Like, that's the problem Tau has now. Tau got a bunch of point reductions, so maybe that fixes that. But I have not seen a Tau army that's going to beat double Spirianari. I've not seen that.
The other problem is against a really well-constructed guard army now, if they go second, they lose.
Yeah, I see that too.
Because the whole thing that they rely on is either they're going to have lots of bodies for tons of fire, or they're going to have lots of drones trying to hide out of line of sight to keep their suits alive, and guard counter both of those really easily.
You're not going to hide stuff from guard. No. Mm-hmm. But I like Tau a lot, and I would love to see Tau be more competitive. I think people aren't playing it because they got frustrated. I also don't think that it's easy to play the best list, but the people that are really good, I'm seeing them go 5-1 at stuff with Tau. Like, it is definitely a 5-1 army. It just isn't the 6-0 army, and I think it's because of Eldar. That's where I'm at on it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, so I think we basically covered most of it. I think there's actually probably a decent number of lists that could potentially do well and really rely on the skill of the player, which is exciting because that's really good.
Right.
And even just in my own play experience, even when you think you're down and out, you're not necessarily down and out. And, you know, ITC missions do a good job of being relatively well-balanced. So I think it's really exciting, actually, just to see what's going to happen. Who knows what people like Mitch are going to come up with.
They're balanced. They're balanced if you mean balanced against orcs and Tyranids and pro-Eldar. That's
Eldar for sure.
That's the joke about ITC missions is that because you can take Mark for Death and Reaper together, anything that's a Horde army, you immediately get 8. You get 8 secondary points, and then you're playing an Eldar player, and you're like, I don't know what to take against you, and I'm like, sorry.
So the controversy right now, not a controversy, but the question on the table for reason those guys to answer is about these big empty buildings with roofs that people can hide in.
With super unclear rules.
Those buildings seem to have gotten bigger over time, and now you can fit like a Castellan inside. And so, do you think
you can fit 7 Castellans in that one, Darren? Yeah. Did you see that picture with the Castellan standing in front of it?
It's crazy. So,
that is like the Castellan's living room where it entertains its Castellan family.
Yeah.
Do you think
one guy I was talking to said he's as good.
Do you think that's going to influence the meta at LVO specifically?
Yes, massively.
I don't know how many tables are going to have stuff that's that big, but you're going to have to plan for it. And it means that, like no one's going to have a flyer heavy list and win. Like, no one's going to have 7 Alea Talk flyers and some Eldar on the ground and win and do well at LVO. Like, there's a bunch of lists that just aren't going to be able to hang once your opponent's army is hiding inside of a big magical box. Nick posted a thing on Facebook about how are these actually going to be ruled on? And Reese is going to supposedly answer that for us before the tournament. And to me, that's a big thing. Because, like, silly things, like, it's got a roof that you can take off, but they ruled at SoCal that Shining Spears could just go inside of it. They could just, it's got a roof.
So, because the thing is it's, and this goes kind of to my, this is going to be on my wish list, actually, which is, it makes everything that doesn't have fly or infantry as a keyword worse.
Yeah.
Period. I have struck everything that's a bike out of my list building, everything that has cavalry, all these things have to go away.
Yeah, because they can't get inside.
Yeah.
But then what I was going to say is that the Shining Spirits have fly, but they're not infantry, they're a bike, but they have fly. And so the fly rules say you ignore terrain when you're moving. Now, I always thought that meant that I still have to physically be able to get the model there. Yeah. But no, they said no. Yeah. So you've got these big magical buildings, and you've got these spears that are hiding inside, running out, killing something, and then soul bursting back inside.
Yeah.
And that's dumb.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that is not the way that it's rolled, even though I might be taking double spear and LVO. I don't know. And then indirect fire is going to be big. The thing is that people are acting like every table is going to have these hangers, and Frontline has like 10 different terrain sets, and they're swapping out so all their tables have their terrain, which makes sense because they want you to buy it. And to their credit, I own 3 of the sets. I think they're great. I think that there's going to be, you might play all of your games without that hanger, right? Or you might have 5 games with the hanger. It's going to be a little random.
The issue though is that it's not just the hanger; it's also the Necron Tomb world.
Yep.
There's a bunch of other terrain sets
specifically, yeah.
Those 2 specifically, but there are a few others that definitely have buildings that can cause questionable interaction. So it's frustrating because, like, I would love to take some Space Wolves to LVO, and I want to put them on bikes because that's really the best loadout for them. It makes them T5, so they're better when they're with a 2-up in orcs. There's just a lot of upsides to that. Just not good, not viable.
Yeah.
It will cost me a game.
And the bigger issue is just that we need good terrain rules that everybody understands. And one guy was joking that he doesn't want to buy that hanger to practice his practice games, so he's just going to take his giant KR multi-case and put it on the table, and that should be close enough. It's literally that big. I
do feel like the GW case actually could be a good stand-in.
I think it's actually bigger than that. Like, I'm a big fan of Reese and Frankie and everything they do for the community, so I don't want to just throw shade at them, but I have to say, if I say but, then everything else I said doesn't matter, right? So, I have to say though, I think they're really wrong on this, on creating either of those terrain pieces, and I think they're being wrong strong. I think that's what they're doing. It doesn't. So it's not. I don't think it's good for the game at all. I don't think it's strategically interesting. I don't care for the giant.
So the point I like to raise for anyone who has any questions about totally enclosed buildings. GW does not make one. They do not exist anywhere in the game. If it's a totally enclosed building, it's a fortification, and you can store guys in it.
Right.
So the enclosed building thing is not something that exists in the core game design, and that's where I actually tend to have I get frustrated with it. I actually think a few of them can be useful. It makes infantry better. Not that infantry needs that right now, but like a couple small ones here and there can be good. But when I can hide an entire Imperial Guard army in one, that's silly.
Yep.
What is the point? Like, it's going to be so decisive. Like, that's the thing is I was playing a practice game against the #1 Knights player earlier this week, and we were talking, and he was talking about Knights for LVO. He's like, how do you play against 3 Knights? Because that's not what I played against him. And I said, at LVO, I'm not necessarily worried about that because I don't know that 3 Knights is a list that goes past, undefeated for more than 3 rounds just because of terrain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Up here, we have some fully enclosed buildings, but we just play them as impassable. It's a very confusing thing. Yeah. Oh well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's a hot topic right now, and hopefully it will be sorted out pretty soon so people can plan. So before we move on to the final topic of the evening, any clues what you guys are going to play?
It'll be Imperium.
I'm going back and forth between Ynnari and Tyranids.
Okay.
Which, by the way, I own a bunch of armies. This season made it very clear that I'm an Eldar and Tyranid player. I don't know that I'm going to be joining Mitch back. Well, for one, it was really obnoxious both going for best guard at every tournament. That was dumb.
Yeah.
So Mitch enjoys Imperium a lot more than I do. I really like the janky finesse of Tyranids and Eldar. So I'm sure I'll take one of those. I am not locked in. However, Stephanie, who does all my painting, cares deeply about our paint score at LVO. So I will be locked in earlier than most, I think. Because she wants to... We have a friend who's going to drive down with a giant display board. She wants to do the whole thing. Nice. So I'll be locked in at some point. But I probably, like Mitch, won't talk about it much. Just because I play so many games against people that listen to the podcast. And they say, I listened to the show. And I'm like, I'm glad that I gave you a schematic on how to beat me.
Nice.
So...
Nice. Cool. Well, we look forward to that. So the final topic for tonight's episode was a question I put out to you guys, and I've got my answer as well. We were supposed to come up with the top, if you were like in charge of GW and you could influence the game in whatever way you wanted, your Christmas top 3 wish list for Warhammer 40k.
Can we exclude terrain rules, because I feel like that's everyone's number one.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's exclude terrain. It wasn't on my list, but we can exclude that. Yeah.
It wasn't on mine either, but
really,
it was all 3 of yours.
Well, it was a mental lapse, Mitch. I didn't think about how much terrain rules upset me.
It was like number 1 with exclamation points and lines underneath.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us your list there, Mitch?
So my list after that would be 1. Codified. One of them's for ITC. So a codified player behavior packet for tournaments.
Yeah.
So that everyone kind of knows what's expected, and that way, there's much more. It's much easier for TOs to have repercussions and ramifications because it's all spelled out in a player packet that says, "Hey, if you do this, here is the consequence."
Something
and so
like
it's
that actually floated around for a while, but just kind of disappeared. That was a few months ago.
Yeah, they're still working on it. But that's I can't wait for that. I hope that they really nail it. And I'm sure, if they're taking their time with it, I'm sure they will.
Okay.
Number 2 would be just all normal Marines dropping 2 points, just 2 points. That would be huge for just making Marines playable. The Blood Claw formation that's in the new book would be great if you could take enough blood claws to make it effective, but you can't because they're just too spendy.
Okay.
And then number 3 would probably have to do with just clarifying the language of the game. So having a instead of there's lots of aura effects that require the unit to be wholly within, but that's an unclear term versus there's a lot of word clarifications that I would, if they just use the standard language all the time, then they could have a definition for each word, so they can clarify when we use this word, it always means this.
Yeah.
That kind of codified commonality in all the books would be great.
Yeah, as opposed to having to infer what they meant, because another rule over there kind of sounds like it's supposed to be like that.
Exactly, and I have one extra one.
Oh, bonus! Okay,
Christmas which would be them going completely digital with all of the rules, so they can just update things as they go.
Right.
Chapter approved. The second chapter approved now just highlights that, where are the points, where did they come from, where they're going. It's really confusing.
Especially since it says you still need the first chapter approved.
Yeah.
Which I presume is a book that eventually won't be in print anymore.
Yeah.
Why do you need the first chapter approved? I thought they made it clear that you didn't need it.
No, they made it clear that you do in the first paragraph of the page of the points pages. It says that not all points are in here, so you need the first chapter approved as well.
Oh, that's stupid. Okay.
Yeah.
The Tyranid Forge World points adjustments weren't reprinted, and a bunch of other stuff.
They really just should have copied what they did in AOS. I don't understand why they didn't do that. Anyway.
And just do points for the entire game in one book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm bothered by how, and I should have put this on my wish list and I didn't, but I'm incredibly bothered by how easy it is to mess up your army when you're making an army.
Yeah.
There's too many books and the points are in too many places, and and then you bring in the Forge World garbage where it seems like every month and a half, Mitch, you have some Forge World guard idea that doesn't make logical sense but is raw, and we debate it the time because the Forge World rules are so badly written. Anyways.
Okay, Colin, top 3.
All right. So my first one is I want everybody to stop hating on Eldar so much. No, I'm just kidding. That won't happen. It is hard to I like stylistically how the army plays, and I like the models quite a bit, and I'm enjoying how the army plays, but everybody hates Eldar, and so every time I want to talk about the army, everybody just bitches about the army. But here's what I actually think should happen for Eldar. Since everybody liking Eldar after 20 years of them being overpowered isn't likely. I think, so here's a couple things that have happened. The index that Ynnari is in is no longer for sale. You can only buy it digital only. You can't order it from the Games Workshop website. It's been pulled from retailers. Okay, that's the first piece of information. The second thing is that if you look at the Sisters of Battle Beta Codex, they've redone how double action works entirely for Act of Faith. And the way they redid it is what everyone that I know, who I respect in the game, playtesters and everyone, has told me what they think should happen to Ynnari. So my guess is that what we're seeing here is the reason Ynnari didn't get changed, because point changes isn't what Ynnari needs. The problem is that if you nerf their point values, unless you give them an entirely separate point list, which both Mitch and I think is a good idea, where, okay, it's Ynnari, so it's more expensive than Craft World. But if you just change their points, you hammer on Craft World, and Craft World doesn't need that. That's not a... Craft World Eldar without Ynnari isn't so powerful that it needs nerfs.
No, they're just very good.
Yeah, they're good, but they're not...
No, yeah,
I'm not... The problem I see is
good, yeah.
I'm not going to play Craft World Eldar instead of Ynnari. That's the problem that I see. There's no reason to. So, except Wave Serpent spam with Guardians, which isn't as good now. So, I think what they're gearing up for is that they didn't want to do a rewrite of the Ynnari Codex and the Sisters of Battle Codex and everything else in Chapter Approved. I think we're literally going to get a book of some sort, and I think it's going to completely redesign how Soulburst works.
Yeah.
Not only do I think that's what's going to happen, but I think that would be my top Christmas wish. I want to play Ynnari with rules that are not as broken. The reality is that in a points-based system where math is so much of the game, you cannot double action something and have the math be fair. That's not actually possible.
I thought that they just turn the various strength from death actions into stratagems.
I guess, but then they run triple battalion and it's fine. I think it needs to be that the way they've done Act of Faith is they limited a lot on what you can do with it, and they made it harder to get them off. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that they did there. They hammered Celestine, right? They just said, she shouldn't do what she's doing. So I think that the if you look, I think that there's indications of what's going to happen to Yanari.
All right, cool.
So that's my first one. My second one is there isn't really variety at the top tables. And there hasn't been for the past probably... There was early in this year, in my opinion, but from Nova on, at Nova, all of the top tables were Eldar and Castellan lists. Like, everything. And what I'm seeing is there's a lot of armies that just can't hang. Now, part of that is Triple Knight wrecks a bunch of stuff. Necrons don't know what to do against that, just as an example. So there's a bunch of armies that just don't get to hang because in our meta, a third of our players are playing Triple Knight. Maybe not a third. It's a lot, though. And then you add orcs to that, and orcs have combos that a lot of armies can't overcome. And then you've got the fact that the majority of what people seem to own is Marines, and Marines aren't competitive, like we've just been talking about. So what I want to see is an actual revamp, and maybe the Vigilus is the beginning of this, where they actually give special abilities and stratagems to these underpowered armies rather than just trying to make them cheaper. Because I own a lot of Necrons. And everybody's like, hey, Colin, you're going to probably play Necrons after chapter approved because they're all going to get cheaper. No, they are cheaper, but they still are fundamentally underpowered. They don't have the combos everybody else has. They can't do anything about the psychic phase. They're just bad. And then and then what are they going to do against orcs? I tried for an hour the other day to come up with a post-chapter approved Necron list that can beat the orc list. I got nothing. So I think that they need to do a better job of helping the underpowered lists, and it's not just point drops. Yeah. And maybe, because they've said they're going to release multiple campaign books, and each one's going to have specialty detachments for more armies. That's why Vigilus only has a few. It has, like, Imperium and Orcs and Eldar, and Silicult, I think. So that would be my second one, for sure.
Yeah.
And my third one... my third one. Okay. This game makes a lot of money. There's a lot of books. Why do I not have a place to go to find out how a ruling actually works? Why is that not a thing? Why is there nowhere to go so that I can say how, like, there was an argument at a tournament about how Soul Burst triggers. And raw, it's very confusing. It involves 3 books to figure it out and a lot of conversation. Jim Vassal, who posted a long thing on competitive 40K. No one was in agreement. Reese, when I asked him, dodged the question. I didn't ask him through an email formally. I asked him like in conversation, so he probably just got distracted. I'm not throwing Reese under the bus. But I don't want to have to email Frontline because that doesn't make sense to me. I do it, but, they're busy. They're really busy, especially right before LVO. And I need to know how they're going to rule, but that's really only at their tournaments that matters for. Their rulings aren't good for, like, Nova, okay? So I can email GW and they won't respond. No offense, but I've tried that. It doesn't work. So I think it's silly to have a game that's this big and this much revenue that doesn't have a rules team, that like an actual customer service rules questions team. I think it probably takes a couple people and a knowledge base, and we're done. So I would like to know that if
I'll do it, GW, if you're listening.
Yeah, I want to know that if Mitch has a question and I have a question about how the game is played, and we go to a top table tournament game, that we both know how that rule is actually played. Because losing a game because you disagree on a rule, which happened, I didn't lose a game because of it, but there was a ruling in my final game at Renegade where I had played it one way, he had played it the other, the TO arbitrarily picked his version. Fine, I would have lost the game anyways, it doesn't matter. But that's a feel bad.
Yep. Okay.
So that'd be my third thing.
Nice. And like you see them, they making card databases for Night Vault and deck builders and all that sort of thing. So like, they have the resources,
Oh, they have plenty of resources.
Well, I don't even know. Like, we have a support department that handles 1,000 customers at work, and it's 2 people. Like, and that's for complicated database problems. Like, I don't know how many people it would take to actually answer the emails from people on rules questions, especially when a lot of them are going to be the same thing, and you literally just need to track what you said.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
That seems ridiculous. That I would actually lump in with that Forge rules should not be a separate set of rules. That's just...
Yes,
I understand why it's a separate model line. I understand the difference in manufacturing processes based on demand, but I don't understand why it's a separate set of rules and why they're so much worse written, and why... Okay, I was going to say, and why 80% of them are useless. That was the other thing I was going to say.
And
Go ahead, Darren.
Thank you. Points, crazy points.
Yeah, we don't want you playing with this stuff. Okay.
All right. So I've got my top 3. Number 1, hashtag make Marines great again. And I think a 2-point drop on normal Marines would be nice, but I think it needs other stuff, and maybe these formations are the tip of the iceberg. But we need Marines better. So many people have Marines. It's their IP, banner boy. Why are Marines so bad? Like, not even semi-good.
And everyone owns them.
Like, just so bad. Like, I got 16,000 points of Marines in the corner, like, I touch for just funny games, and I lose. I even lose those, right? Like, it's just so bad, and it just needs to be better. So, hopefully, it will come, but that's number 1. Number 2, GW should take over Forge World rules writing.
Yes.
A, so that the rules are better. B, so that they're actually well written and compatible with the rest of the game. C, so that things that they promise, like Custodes Beta rules, for example, actually end up happening within the span of an edition. And C,
don't talk crazy.
And finally, so they don't have to feel like in order to get rid of this shit from the game, they have to raise the points for everything 4,000%.
Right.
You know, so that's my thing. I think GW just like you. I understand that they have separate model lines, different materials. I love Forge World models. That's why I own all that stuff. But they got to take that rules writing over because it's just not good the way it is. Yeah, and then now they never used to mess with Forge World points, but now they just had to because it was getting so bad. That they
the fact that somebody, Darren, the fact that somebody wrote the rules for the Malefic Lord before 8th edition came out and thought, yeah, that looks good. Yeah, you can have 9. You can have 10 of those. That sounds great. That's just like, really?
Seems fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working as intended.
And my final one is Army Builder. It would be nice if we had something similar to the Sigmar. Obviously, Sigmar is easier to do because it's not so granular.
But their app is so good.
Yeah, like we need. It's been promised. So hopefully, it's coming, but we need it. And the more books that come out, the more chapter proofs that come out, the more FAQs that come out. It just becomes harder and harder to keep track of all that stuff. And I can't imagine coming into the game now, or 6 months from now, and be like, how do I make an army? Like, it's
yeah,
crazy.
No, it's getting way too involved.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, you know, it's almost just as much book bloat and stuff as it was at the end of 7th. So, like, you know, it's just things that moved in different places. But basically, it's very similar.
Right.
And my bonus is that when we get all the codexes, which is probably soon, the indexes should just be banned. No more of this. I'm taking this guy index version because I can get this gun on him, or, you know, like I've lost stuff because of index, like librarians on bikes and stuff like that, and fine. It's so janky for people to have like one guy who's an index because of this, and they just need, if you have a codex, no index.
It's sillier than that though. Like the Def Coptas in the Orc Codex. The Orc players legally, raw, are playing with the Codex book version of the Copter with the bomb from the Index for free.
Yeah, that's so silly.
And if you look at the chart that they released, like the what do you call that, flow chart that they released, that is completely fine.
Yep.
So, well, I mean, the thing is I would, as someone who has a lot of models on bikes, I wish that they would just figure out a way, because like it's not just librarians on bikes or, you know, whatever. I've got whole command squads on bikes that don't exist right now outside of an index. So finding a happy medium, but once again, if they went to a living rules thing, it's not hard to just give a points value to that. Like it takes no energy. So.
Yeah, my problem is the splitting. I'm going to take these rules from over here and this rule from over here because it's more powerful. Guys, leave it alone.
Yeah, that's the bit about it. Like, I understand that some things you can't play now because there's no rules for it and fine. But it's the using the index for advantage because it's there and there's a process for doing that.
Right.
Yeah. So I gave 4, but I'm the host, so people can deal with it. Okay,
I get 4, I'm a guest. It works out.
Well, you lost one. Though. Oh no, you still gave 4. Yeah, you cheated as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So that about wraps up our show.
Well, Darren, I'm going to add my fourth then. I'm going to add that I want the Gene Stealer cult book to be out when enough time for it to be out.
I think.
I'd love that.
I think it will.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Well, I
think it too, but I don't want it to be 2 weeks before the event, right?
Yeah, I've got 120 Gene Stealers in a box waiting for a book. So yeah, that was my craziness before. So,
that might be more than you
need. Yeah, yeah, probably. I think I had 140. Actually, I got rid of 20. All right. So before we go, just mention again your charity event, the date, and where we'll be able to find details on that.
Right now, you can go to the facebook.com/BiffPod page, and there's an event there for it. It's called Charity. It's called Charity Hammer, and it's January 4th through 6th, and it's all online, so you can watch it from wherever you happen to be. And then CharityHammer.com will be up soon. It's the same information. It's just an easier URL for me to give you, and that's what we got going on.
Cool. And BiffPod is BIF, so Best in Faction POD podcast. So BiffPod.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Okay.
And if you'd like to listen to us talk about Chapter Approved, on Monday, we're going to be recording a special all Chapter Approved individuals episode of BiffPod, and we're going to have Nick Malvati and Chuck Arnett with us as well. So we'll have 4 people, and we're going to really dive in. We're not going to go through every point study, but we're going to talk about every army and how they fundamentally changed and what we see good and bad from that.
Sweet. That's definitely something to look out for. On CanHammer TV next week on Monday night, we are live streaming Steve, who did pretty well at Capital City with Sisters, Index Sisters, and he's bringing his Beta Codex Sisters, and he wants to play a hard army, so he's going to play my Custodes. So we're going to do Custodes versus Beta Sisters on Monday night, and then we have a Age of Sigmar show on Thursday with LLV, who runs the crazy... He's the AOS equivalent of Peter, who runs the stats for Chapter Tactics. He's going to come on and we're going to talk about North American AOS stats on CanHammer Live next Thursday. And that probably will take us into Christmas, but we'll see. I'm away over Christmas, so I won't be live streaming anything, but I'm planning on setting up a guest game against Scary, because I'll be in Toronto. I have his hammer to deliver to him. And we're trying to set up a grudge match between Jukari and Custodes.
Nice.
And we might stream that from Toronto over the holiday, so we'll see how that goes. I'd like to thank you guys, Colin and Mitch from Best in Faction, for joining me tonight, for all your insights and comments. And I'd like to thank all the people watching and supporting the channel on Patreon and subscribing on Twitch. And we will wish you guys a good night.
All right. Bye, everybody.
See y'all later.